Welcome to the Five Star Revolution podcast on a special Friday night. This is another episode with your host, CJ Price. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and like our Facebook page, Five Star Revolution Podcast. And tonight, we have a very special guest, a 20-year in-ring veteran pro. It's Eric Corvis. How you doing tonight, sir?
What's going on, CJ? How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. Thanks for joining us tonight here on the Five Star Revolution podcast. It's a pleasure.
Oh, dude, thank you so much for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
So let's start from the start. Um, how'd you get into this crazy business, into the professional wrestling business?
Well, I mean, my story is a little bit different than most people who, when they were kids, they saw wrestling and realized when they saw it, that's what they wanted to do with their life. I was always a wrestling fan, but I never really thought about what it would be like to be a wrestler. I went to a Jersey All Pro Wrestling live event in early 2001. My girlfriend was friends with one of the guys on roster. During intermission, they announced they were opening up a wrestling school, and it was literally a 15-minute walk from my house. So it was very happenstance because it was that moment where it clicked into my head that, hey, maybe this is something I could actually do. So May 20th, 2001, started my journey here in wrestling at Jersey All Pro Wrestling Academy in Bayonne, New Jersey.
Wow. So in 2001, I was 11 years old. So that's a long time ago, man. Um, so you were not a wrestling fan growing up?
Oh no, I definitely was. I loved watching wrestling. I was an ECW kid all throughout like high school and stuff, but it just never creeped into my head that it was something that I could legitimately follow. You know, it always seemed like something that was like so far out of reach that that my brain never even gave it a second thought that it was something I could do.
So what interested you in becoming a wrestler?
Well, I mean, like once they announced they were opening up a school and opened up like the actual like realistic option of me becoming a wrestler, you know, then everything started rocking and rolling. Then all those years of being a fan all came to fruition when I realized it was something I could do. And then when I went to my first day of training, there were like 47 people on our first day of training. And it was something that I picked up on really quickly. By the end of our class, I think there were only like 4 or 5 of us left out of 47. So it was something that really clicked. And once that happened, man, it was off to the races.
So during your time in your first few weeks of pro wrestling, what was going through your mind? Like, did you expect it to be so painful? Because I used to wrestle, and when I got into the ring, I didn't expect it to be that painful.
Well, I mean, like everybody else, I experimented with backyard wrestling a teeny bit, so my body had like a slight understanding. But I mean, my first day of training was on a Sunday, and I was still going to high school, and I couldn't go to school on Monday or Tuesday after my first day of training. And I think that's the reason why that 47 dwindled down to 4 or 5 so quickly. You don't realize how much of a toll it really does take on your body and how many repetitions you really need to have before your body gets used to it as best that it can. Because I'm 37 now, man, and like if I have a really rough match, you're feeling it. You're feeling it for days afterwards. So that's not something that ever goes away, but your body gets as used to it as a human body can.
So what do you say to those people that think wrestling is fake?
I say that pro wrestling is no faker than any other form of entertainment that you enjoy. If you go to the movies, that script was worked on for years and practiced for months before execution. You go to a concert, those songs were written years in advance and practiced countless times on stage. You go to a Broadway play, those people had to practice over and over and over again before you saw them. Pro wrestling, for me, trumps all of that. A wrestler has to show up to a show, sometimes not even knowing who he's wrestling, and be able to put together a digestible form of entertainment in one day and not mess up because if you messed up, everyone lets you know it. You know what? You know what movie stars don't have to worry about? Messing up their lines or falling down in the entire room telling them that they effed up. Pro wrestling is a completely different art form. And if you watch any form of entertainment that gets practiced ahead of time, that includes football, basketball, baseball, hockey, they have to practice over and over again before they get out there, man. Wrestling's just like any form of entertainment. And I've played basketball, and I've played football, and I've played baseball for 10 years growing up when I was a kid. And pro wrestling is easily the most taxing sport that I've ever been a part of.
I definitely agree with you. I used to play baseball in high school and a little bit of wrestling, like the Olympic style, and pro wrestling does take a toll on your body, and the injuries are very real.
Exactly, dude. I got 2 plates and 8 screws that have been holding my left forearm together since I was 22 years old.
Wow. So, 20 years in the business, what motivates you to keep going?
Dude, just the act of pro wrestling, man. Like there is nothing that trumps that experience in a ring in front of a crowd, man. And even sometimes not in front of a crowd. I mean, during the pandemic, there were quite a few shows that were closed set shows that I was a part of. But there's just something about being in that ring and performing that makes me feel at ease, like regardless of any kind of bullshit that's going on at home or at work or in real life. When you get into that ring, man, and you're performing in front of a crowd, all that stuff goes away. And like you said, like I've been doing this for 20 years, since May 20th of 2001. I have competed in 1,463 wrestling matches as of recording, and I'll do another 1,463 after this if my body permits me. Like I'm good at pro wrestling and I love performing. If I make it to WWE or AEW or any of those places, awesome. But as long as I'm in that ring in front of one person or 1,000 people, like I'm at ease, man. That's my zone.
So, out of all those matches that you had in your career, what's that one match that stands on your head that you're very proud of that you think is the best match you had?
Oh man, that's really tough. I think that like your favorite match as an individual always changes throughout your career, because then you always have that one match that it's like, oh my God, this is the best match that I ever had. And then you have another one that's the best. If I have to talk about the one that really stands out in my head, it was me tagging with my partner, Mike Quest, as the Garden State Gods. We were the Jersey All Pro Wrestling Tag Team Champions at the time. And we had a street fight against the Necro Butcher and Brody Lee. Rest in peace. And I think that was the match that really like woke people up to what me and my partner were really capable of. Like we lost the tag titles to them that night, but we got a standing ovation from at least 1,200 people in the venue that night. And it was the moment that everybody was like, all right, these guys can really go with like top tier talent. And then of course, after the passing of Brody, that's always going to be such a like positive memory that I'll keep with me always. Other than the fact that it was a great match, it was the fact that I got to share the ring with somebody so beloved in the industry, and like right as they were like really making.
So, would you say that match put your name on the map?
I would definitely say that a lot more people started taking us seriously after that moment.
And were you a single star? You're a single star now, right?
Yes.
Do you enjoy tag teaming or singles better?
I enjoy them both, man. Honestly, like I know that's such like a half-assed answer, but a singles match and a tag team match are two completely different animals. The same as a triple threat, the same as a fatal four-way. I look at every different match type as a way to create a different type of art. Maybe tag team is sculpting, and maybe singles wrestling is painting, and maybe a four-way is like charcoal sketching. Like it's all a different way because you have different bodies to create different interesting visuals with. So like I would say that I'm 50-50. I'm 50% a singles wrestler and 50% a tag team wrestler, because even to this day, if Quest ever gets the itch and he wants to pop into the ring, we'll reform the Garden State Gods and have a tag match, man, and it'll be just like nothing ever changed. Mike Quest, my former partner, is actually a coach at the H2O in Southern New Jersey, Matt Tremont's company. And just a couple of weeks ago, we wrestled as a tag team against two of their students, and it was awesome. Like I said, it was like nothing ever changed.
So I was gonna imagine you saying that tag team, because for me, a tag team match is a little easier. You gotta take less bumps, and you get to rest a little bit.
So maybe like a couple of years ago, but right now, tag team wrestling is so hot, man. Like there's main event caliber tag team matches. I mean, the other day on AEW, you had the Young Bucks versus Eddie Kingston and Penta in like in a street fight tag team main event. Man, there was no rest in those matches, man. And you got teams like the Young Bucks, man. Where are you getting a breather? Like tag team wrestling is really blowing up right now. And I think if me and Quest were out there, I think we definitely have our work cut out for us. But I think we could still go with top tier tag team talent if we wanted to.
So piggybacking on the Young Bucks and guys like that, I know you worked for indie feds such as GCW and Beyond Wrestling. How was those experiences for you?
Dude, those were awesome. Like I was with Beyond Wrestling at their first ever taping, the first time they ever filmed anything. And I was with them for the better part of a decade and had some of my best matches of all time. And now that Beyond Wrestling is one of the top tier independent promotions out there right now. I think they just got like 3.4 million subscribers on YouTube, and even though I don't wrestle for them full time, like the fact that I was a part of their beginning and a part of their growth that's awesome. And like even the owner of the company, Drew Cordero, says like if there's ever a Hall of Fame, I'm probably going to be one of the first guys they consider to put in, because that's how integral of a part of their beginning years that I was, man. And every now and again, like I'll still go wrestle for Beyond Wrestling. During the WrestleMania weekend in Tampa, Beyond Wrestling had a show down there, and I wrestled Dan Barry. So like every now and again, like I'll still pop back home every now and again. And GCW, that's another company, man. Myself and Mike Quest got to wrestle Santana and Ortiz quite a few times in GCW, and those were some like really like top tier tag team matches, man. And I'll always look back on any time with those companies as some of the like my best matches took place during those times.
So would you say professional wrestling has changed your life? If so, how?
Oh, 100%. 100%, man. Like, I don't think you realize when you're getting into pro wrestling how much of your life it really takes over. I was 16 years old when I started training. I was a junior in high school. So like juggling that while also being a pro wrestler, and any schooling that I had after that, any job that I ever had after that had to accommodate my wrestling shows. The hours in my days had to be able to work out with my wrestling schedule. And I have never missed a wrestling show due to work outside of wrestling. That's another one. I mean, the effect that it takes on your relationships, both intimate and with your family and friends, because you have to juggle the amount of time that you spend with everybody. And dude, the friends that you make in wrestling, the majority of people that I hang out with recreationally are my friends from wrestling. You know, the guys that are just going to come over to my house on a Friday and play some video games and have some drinks, those are my wrestling friends. You know, like when I get married one day, man, half the people at my wedding are probably going to be people that I've met in wrestling, because you don't realize, man, like wrestling takes over your life. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. I think that it had a very positive effect on my life. I don't think I would be the person that I was today if I didn't have wrestling. I don't think I would be as creative. I don't think I would be as comfortable talking in front of people. I don't think I would be as charismatic. I think it would be a lot more difficult for me to to get out there if I didn't have wrestling in my life, you know? And then, of course, like I said before, having it as an escape. Like when something bad happens in your life, man, like my father passed away a few years back and I wrestled the day after because that's what wrestling is for me, you know, being able to step there and not think about it for a second, you know, like, and wrestling has always been there for me in that way. And I think there's a lot of guys who do feel that way.
So out of your 20-year career that you had, I'm assuming you played both heel and face.
Yeah.
What's your favorite thing to do?
Oh man, I love being a heel. I love being a heel, man. And actually, like, if you think about it psychology wise, even if you look outside of wrestling and you're meeting somebody new for the first time, everybody in the world is very jaded, man. Most people have to prove to you they're a good person before you like them, you know? Whereas you can make somebody hate you right off the bat by giving them a certain type of look or saying the wrong thing, even just like walking the wrong way. Like you ever just see somebody walking down the street and just the walk and you're like, oh, screw that guy. That guy looks like an asshole, you know? Yeah. Like it's so much easier to get the average person to hate you than it is to get them to like you. Because to get somebody to like you, you have to prove yourself to that person. You have to prove why you deserve them to like you. So I know how to push buttons, man. I really do. Like I made my debut for PWF in North Carolina last week. It's Colby Carino's company, Steve Carino's son's company. And I went down there and they were like, oh, do you want to be face or heel? I'm like, bro, I'm in North Carolina and I'm about to get announced from New Jersey. Like, if you're not in New Jersey and you get announced from New Jersey anywhere in America, you're getting booed, you know? Right off the bat, I knew it was going to be really easy. And dude, I had the crowd in the palm of my hand the entire time just because I knew what buttons to push. Like, even if you ask my friends and family outside of wrestling, man, I'm a button pusher. Like, I'll find something that annoys you and I'll keep just poking and prodding just for my own amusement. It's easy to correlate that into the ring, which is why I get it's more fun to portray a heel.
What's one regret you had in your career that you learned from?
Oh man. As much as wrestling's a brotherhood and as much as I have a lot of friends in this business, you can't put all of your eggs in one basket. You know, you can only trust even your closest friends so much, you know, because there's been plenty of times where I've gotten like a friend of mine a booking and then they bail last minute and then that looks bad on me. Or somebody that said they would take a ride with me and then they bailed last minute. I think my biggest pet peeve in life is just being reliable. So I think I've just become a little bit more withheld on trust a little bit in wrestling. Like I make sure that like I'm good first before I'll put my eggs in any other basket. Because anytime that I've like fully depended on somebody, there's been a good chance that they bailed on, you know, and it kind of leaves me on the sidewalk.
So to piggyback on that, how do you handle backstage politics?
A lot better now than I used to when I was young. I think the guys who have been in it for a minute, the guys who have been in it around 20 years, 15 to 20 years and more, you kind of learn to drown it out. You know, you kind of learn that like you have to concentrate on your own stuff. You know, you got to get the peripherals blocked off and you just got to look forward, because if you say something to the wrong person or you say the wrong thing in front of the wrong person, man, your career could be over in a second, you know? So don't even bother getting involved in other people's drama, because one way or the other, you're going to alienate somebody, man. Like on Twitter, like I don't even post like, you'll never find my religious views. You'll never find my political views. You'll never find any of that stuff, because all you're doing as a pro wrestler, putting your opinions on the internet, is alienating somebody, because somebody out there is not going to agree with what you're saying, you know? And if it's the wrong person, man, they could get everybody against you. Like, there's no point in even sharing like really, really, really heavy opinions like that anymore, or dealing with other people's backstage politics and drama. If everybody just concentrated on themselves, man, pro wrestling would be so much better of a place, you know. But everybody likes being mixed in everybody else's shit.
What I have to say about backstage politics, if you don't mind me, I feel like they serve a purpose in certain places, but not in small indie feds that are just starting out or trying to get a name for themselves. I feel like the whole roster, 20, 30 wrestlers, should all shine, should all have a chance, you know?
Of
Not just
course.
for buddies.
But here's that's the thing, and just to play devil's advocate, because I've had this conversation with other people before. Like, say you had the book out of nowhere, like an indie company was like, "Hey, man, we really like your podcast. Do you think you would be interested in helping us book?" And then they're like, "Hey, do you have any suggestions of guys we should use?" You'd book your friends. You'd reach out to the guys that you have a personal relationship with. That's not politics, man. That's just pro wrestling. That's why they say that you gotta talk to everybody backstage and you gotta build these relationships with people. Because at the end of the day, the first person in somebody's brain is going to be their friends, are going to be the people that impress them the most in their inner circle. So I never even thought of that as politics, because not one person in pro wrestling, given that opportunity, wouldn't hook up the people they think deserve it, or the people they think were overshadowed, or don't get what they deserve, you know? So I never necessarily considered that politics. Because when I asked you that question, you know damn well you had like 5 guys in your head that you'd be like, yeah, I'd use those guys first, you know? All of it.
That's true, man. I agree. So, what would you say is the hardest part of being a wrestler?
The hardest part of being a wrestler is the things that you have to give up outside of wrestling, which is disappointing. It really is. Like, you'll always hear from veterans out there that, like, the only way that you could be successful in this business is if you make sacrifices. You're going to miss birthdays, and you're going to miss anniversaries, and you're going to miss this, and you're going to miss that. I really think that's a very toxic mindset to have, man. It sucks that so many people think that they have to give up everything if they want to make it in wrestling. That's disappointing, dude. You should be able to enjoy your life and maintain good relationships with the people outside of wrestling while also growing as a wrestler, because then once you're successful, who the hell do you have to share that with? You know? Like, if I make it as a wrestler, but I had to miss out on anybody's birthdays or weddings or anything like that, that just doesn't make me a very good friend. That makes me very selfish. That makes it look like that wrestling is the only thing that matters to me, and I never wanted anybody in my life to ever feel that way. And maybe that is a detriment to a point. Maybe that's why I'm not on TV right now, or maybe because I just couldn't dedicate myself enough. But if sacrifice and dedication means that I alienate my friends and family, then I'm good where I am, man.
Great answer, man. Great answer. And a couple more questions before I let you go, because I know you're a busy guy and you gotta do things. What do you train now? Do you still train at the New Jersey Pro Wrestling Academy, or what do you go now?
Jersey All Pro closed down years and years and years ago. So right now, every now and again, I go down to H2O. It's down in Williamstown, New Jersey. It's run by Preacher and Mike Quest, and it's owned by Matt Tremont. I've also been going to ECPW in Lake Hiawatha, New Jersey, which is run by Gino Caruso. And I've also been going over to a new school in New Jersey known as Spartan, which is located in Garwood, New Jersey. I like to go to different schools just because you get a different experience. You get to work with different people when you go to different places. And in my opinion, the only way to really get better is to continually work with different people and get different points of view, because all wrestling is different flavors of ice cream. So I'm just out there trying to taste all the flavors.
I agree with you there, man. You definitely got to branch out and try different things for sure, especially in the world of pro wrestling. So my last question for you, Mr. Corvis, is can you explain a little bit of what your character is about and why you call yourself the Matt Mechanic?
Oh yeah, 100%, man. For years, I always kind of struggled with like finding that one character that really connected with people, and a lot of times I would grasp so far outside of like who I really was just because I thought that would connect. Like in the beginning, me and my partner Quest were like goth kids, like hot topic kids. And like before that, I was in another tag team called H2O, where we were like hip hop kids. We were like white rich kids pretending we were hip hop. And dude, I've been like an Italian mobster. Uh, I was a steampunk scientist for a long time, man. But when I took my time off and I decided to come back to wrestling, and my dad was sick and eventually passed away, my father is a blue collar guy, man. He was a carpenter, he was an electrician, he was a mechanic. And when I came back to wrestling, like my wrestling style was always that guy who tried to do unique things you haven't, like moves you haven't seen before in the ring. I always tried to tweak it and create really cool visuals with my moves. So when I came back to wrestling, I decided like, well, one, I'm going to pay homage to my father, who was a mechanic, and two, I feel like the Matt Mechanic really describes what my in-ring style is. Like, what does a mechanic try to do? The mechanic fixes things that are broken, or he tries to improve things and make things work better. And that's who I am as a wrestler. When I'm going into a new wrestling company, give me the dude who has the most problems, and I'll get him better, you know? Or give me, like, I'll see a wrestling move and I'll tweak it and I'll make it even better than it was. Because I'm a mechanic, I'm a tweaker, I can do that. And then it just developed from there. Like when you look at me come out to the ring, I got my mechanic shirt, I got my name tag on, I got my work boots on. Because yeah, I'm going into the ring to paint art, but I'm also going to work. And when you see me go to the ring, I look like I'm headed to work. And when I'm leaving the ring, you could tell that I put in a hard day's work. So it all just kind of ties together, man.
I 100% agree with that statement that you just said because I've seen your work before. I've been to a couple Beyond Wrestling shows and you really impressed me, man. So that was a great statement right there. And where can fans and our listeners find Mr. Eric Corvis on social media?
Dude, I'm the easiest person to find on social media because I am just at Eric Corvis. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, and I'm on Facebook. Yeah, I'm very open with my fans too, man. If anybody has any questions or just wants to shoot the shit, like I'm an open book. I'm an open book, man.
So, do you mind sharing the Five Star Revolution podcast on your platform?
Oh yeah, of course, of course.
All right, Mr. Corvus, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight on the Five Star Revolution podcast. And you guys don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and like our Facebook page, Five Star Revolution Podcast. Mr. Corvus, thank you so much again. You have a great night.
Thank you so much, CJ. Thanks for chatting.
Thanks.